Good morning and welcome to Ray's Breakfast. Hashtag what are you saying? Your youth-focused, solution-driven talk show where we take Nigeria's big issues and break them down with fresh eyes and real conversations. We believe young people don't just need to be spoken to, they need to be part of the conversation because their voices matter now more than ever. As the saying goes, you can't build the future for the youth, but you can build the youth for the future. And with me this morning, building that future, one hot topic at a time, is my co-anchor, Triumph Akimboye. Always insightful, always ready. And today's topic is actually raising eyebrows and sparking debate. Compulsory drug testing for university students, a step in the right direction. The government says it's about protecting our youth, but
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
my God. Oh my God. Oh no, I did not expect this. This already. Where do I continue
Happy birthday.
from
Don't
now?
continue. Just 1 minute. Happy birthday on behalf of
Thank
all
you.
of us.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for celebrating me. Yeah, it's my birthday. Queen was born today, or is born today. Anyways, so our topic for today is compulsory drug testing for university students, a step in the right direction. The government says it's about protecting our youth, but is it truly protection or control? And we're going to dive into that, of course, with a very wonderful expert guest in the educational space. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll look through the papers this morning from the Nigerian newspaper. So please stay with us. We'll be right back shortly. All right, welcome back, our dearest viewers. So instead of taking our headline stories this morning, I think it's best that we dive straight into the hot topic for today. I've been joined by Triumph Akimboye. Triumph, forgive me, everything just scattered in 1 minute, and I forgot to, introduce you to our audience. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well.
I can see that.
You're making me happy differently.
Are you serious?
You're looking very beautiful as the birthday girl that you are.
Thank you.
So once again, happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much. So today's conversation is quite, pressing, very important because it deals with the educational sector. And every time I'm on this table, I tell you that the educational sector is one that pinches me every single time. So I like to have conversations about that, solution-driven conversations to analyze and explore the things that are going on. So today's topic has been titled Compulsory Drug Testing for University Students, a Step in the Right Direction. Today, we made into a subject that touches the very fabric of our nation's educational future and youth development. The federal government, through the Ministry of Education, has expressed strong support for compulsory and random drug integrity tests in Nigeria's tertiary institutions. According to Education Minister Dr. Olatunji Alausen, this move is aimed at curbing the rising wave of substance abuse among students, and it comes after a meeting with the chairman of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, who described drug abuse as a major threat to both national security and youth potential. From thousands of arrests to tons of drug seizures, the statistics are chilling, yet the conversation goes beyond crime. It raises questions about student welfare, trust, mental health, human rights, and also institutional responsibility. So is compulsory drug testing a step in the right direction, or are we simply reacting to a deeper, more systemic issue? And joining me for this important conversation is education expert Dr. Peter Ogudoro, a voice well respected in Nigeria's academic and youth development space, and I can say a friend of the house. Good morning, Dr. Peter.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to join you, and I wish you a very happy birthday.
Thank you so
Looking
much.
forward to
Thank you so
a
much,
wonderful
Dr.
year for you
Peter.
ahead. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All right, so we're diving into a conversation that is very critical, the compulsory drug testing and everything. But I want us to begin with the basics. Do you believe that this compulsory drug testing in tertiary institutions actually addresses the root of drug abuse crisis among students? Or do you think it's just treating the symptom rather than the cause?
Well, both ways, but definitely the way your brain is working is correct. There are systemic challenges that we most of the time as political leaders ignore and chase the symptoms, chase shadows. The question we should be asking is why our children moving in the direction of drug addiction more and more. And until we are able to arrest those root causes of young people seeing heaven in drugs, even if we are doing testing and even discovering the people who are involved in drug addiction, we are not likely to be able to discourage more youth from moving in that direction, because sometimes what you find is that indulgence in drug is a kind of escapism. People who indulge in it use it as a means to forget their problems for a while. So in a country where we don't have industries that can engage our engineers when they graduate, in a country where we don't teach in an engaging way, even in our universities, and a lot of our children are even studying courses they wouldn't have loved to study. Their parents have imposed these courses on them, and our professors haven't been taught good customer care, where students are not actually understood to be clients and to be customers of university administrators and professors. In that kind of environment, again, where you don't have the right equipment that makes the children see education not as a scam, but as a tool for preparing for a great future. So what you find is that these children get to these places, and because our educational institutions are not very engaging and interesting places, they look for ways to escape from the challenges they are seeing. But that is not to say that what the government is looking at shouldn't be given serious consideration, because if we do indeed introduce random drug testing, the signals will go out there, especially to parents who will now start insisting that their children need to become very careful as they get into university, so that the investment they're making in them by way of school fees they pay to keep them in universities will not be wasted money. So given our level of development, maybe we can start from here, but we shouldn't forget that there are deeper problems that we have to address if we want to deal with the problem at its roots and resolve it on a permanent basis.
All right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peter. The next question that I would like to ask, you mentioned that we should first look into the causes of this, the reason why we are in this situation of drug abuse presently. So my question is that in your own experience, do you think drug testing alone would be sufficient? When we have a situation or a scenario where some of the students are tested as positive. In a situation like this, how do you expect, maybe there should be some follow-up, maybe there should be some counseling, maybe there should be some support system. And where we don't have all of that, how do you think that the drug testing alone is going to be sufficient?
No, certainly nobody who does my kind of job and has my kind of experience will tell you that drug testing alone will give you the result you're looking for. One of the major missing links in Nigeria's education system is the absence of professional career professional counselors in our education system, right from kindergarten up to the highest level of education, university, people doing up to PhD. You'll find that our children are passing through, most of our children are passing through, up to 80% of them, if not more, are passing through the educational system without having access to professional counselors who can help them to understand why they are in school. And of course, also help them to make the right choice of courses, help them to understand what challenges they're facing with respect to the exams and adopt appropriate strategies to deal with those challenges. And so in the absence of counselors, what you find is where we are. But if you have counselors who are professionally trained to provide emotional support to students and also serve as consultants to the teachers who sometimes abuse these children who now resort to drug as an escape route. Until you are able to have those kinds of people in the system and provide them enabling environment to serve and stay in the system. Because some of the counselors who are actually professionally trained are not even happy to serve in the school system because they are not well paid, and their offices are also not adequately equipped to be able to do their jobs, professionally. And many have left the country, and we know why. Everybody talks about Japa now. So you are right. If I'm hearing you correctly, your question is presupposing that merely catching the thief will not stop the next thief from considering stealing. And so the way to go is to provide professional counseling services in our school system as well as in our communities, so that young people and their parents can find places where they go to for the support they need, especially when they begin to grapple with challenges like this. The alternative, service that we can provide is to make more psychiatrists available, and probably more psychiatric hospitals available, but that's a more expensive endeavor project to undertake. I tell you that we are not training enough psychiatrists in our country. I'm not even sure we have up to 300 of them in the country, and the few who have managed to qualify as psychiatrists, many of them have left. A significant fraction of them have left the country because doctors are not well treated in Nigeria, just like teachers. So if you want to deal with the problem from the root, you need to put professionals in place who can provide the guidance, the counseling services, the therapeutic solutions that you need to be able to stop more people from moving in this direction, because young people are hearing the wrong things from their peers, and their peers are not experts. And when you keep listening to your peers who don't understand why you shouldn't indulge in drug, the tendency for you to think that that's the right thing to do is there. But by the time we populate the school system with professional counselors and also make the services of psychiatrists accessible at a cost, that parents and young people can afford, maybe we can actually have an enabling policy, and possibly back it up with a law that all students in Nigeria, especially those who are in high school and universities, should have free access to psychiatrists in universities, and of course have counseling centers in our communities where young people, even if they are not in the school system, can go when they are grappling with emotional challenges, so that they can find the help they need to be able to get out of this thing. So you are right. We need to put a support system in place, both within the universities and high schools, as well as outside of these institutions in our communities, so that access to professional counseling services will make it almost something that is unattractive to young people.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peter. I'm always glad to have conversations like this with you because of your experience in, psychotherapy, counseling, and all of that. I know many times I've mentioned on this show that I like to relate with you on that basis. And I'm glad that we're opening up this discussion beyond just the testing, because testing can be bypassed and we're not really addressing the root cause of this. So I like that you've mentioned that, counseling services, therapy services should even be more pronounced in this times and in this season, where we see this particular, what is it called now? The truants, very rampant in our universities and even our secondary schools. But then I also have another question as regards this, because I feel like, because if we're dealing with universities and, different people, there's a possibility that this can be weaponized by the authorities to target dissenting or vulnerable students. So almost like things can be bypassed because of the country we're in and how some people just throw away, the regular way of doing things. So I'm asking, what mechanism do you think must be in place to ensure that drug testing is not weaponized by authorities to target dissenting or vulnerable students?
Well, it must, if we eventually make up our mind to deploy this on campuses, we must ensure that it is done only by professionals, and because professionals respect ethics, they have ethics that guide their practice. And so you can't let this be in the hands of regular lecturers who are not professional counselors, who haven't received extensive training in psychology to understand how to handle students who have to go through these processes. And even when we discover that some of the children have tested positive to drugs, it doesn't mean we should throw away the child with the bathwater, because sometimes in our country, what you find is that when we find a child who is indulging in drug, we just label him, a stupid boy, a foolish young man, and a miscreant, an area boy, and we rusticate him, and we think that if we get him out of the system, that we have solved our problem as an institution. But as we solve our problem as University X, we are creating problem for the larger society, which is a much bigger challenge to grapple with. So the smart thing to do is, if we think that this must be started in the system, then we must also try and exercise a little patience to be able to train the people who are going to handle this. We have to develop the capacity first before we start deploying the services. But unfortunately, in our country, what I have observed over the years is that we tend to build a house from the roof. We want to do something, we won't exercise patience and train the human resources, develop the human capacity to be able to handle it, and also bring in appropriate technology. What you're likely to find is that even when we start this, you need the right technology to be able to detect drug in a human body. And we know that even our hospitals haven't got enough equipment to be able to solve the problems that come to them on a daily basis. And when we say we want to do it in universities and we are going to test everyone, every freshman coming to university, it means that we will need more equipment than we currently need in our health sector to be able to make this happen. And we know Nigeria doesn't have that capacity. We don't have that capacity technology-wise. We don't have that capacity manpower-wise. So why are we thinking that we are going to be able to start this and make a success of it? But that doesn't, amount to our saying that we shouldn't consider making some progress in this direction. We can, but we should probably do it in stages. We can do a prototype of it. We can select out of the close to 300 universities we have in the country now. We can take 3 universities, one from each geopolitical zone, as testing grounds. And when it works in those places, while we are training the human capacity to deploy to more places, then we can extend the services to all other places. But if we say from day one, we are going to do this in every university in Nigeria, both private and public, we definitely will run into big challenges. And many students are going to become victims of problems that they didn't create.
Dr. Peter, you've mentioned something about capacity right here, and I think you're almost implying that our tertiary institutions probably don't have the infrastructure and funding, to carry out this process. But I'm really wondering, what exactly is the capacity that is needed? Because going back to when I entered university in 100 level, we did drug testing. It was a compulsory thing before you proceed with your program, and it didn't look like any heavy technological equipment was required. I think we just had to pass our urine into a small test tube, and we just got results. I've forgotten how the process went, but it did not look very cumbersome to think that a lot of technological stuff went into place. So when we talk about capacity for our tertiary institutions, which they need to have, what exactly are we talking about?
Yeah, so when we talk about capacity, it's not just the capacity to test. If you are familiar with the problem of HIV across the world, so where we say every mother who shows up and says, I'm pregnant and I want to start antenatal services, is almost compulsory, especially if you go to tertiary health facilities, that those facilities must test every pregnant mother for HIV, so that we can take precautions in case the mother is living with HIV. We try to intervene with the right technology and the right drugs to ensure that we won't have mother-to-child transmission. So when you are doing testing, you are doing testing for a purpose. If eventually you find that a woman has tested positive to this, do you have the drugs? Do you have the human capacity to be able to provide counseling services that will make the woman cope with it? Because if you just break the news and say you have HIV, you have more or less, pronounced death on the person, given the little we know about the average person knows about HIV. So a similar situation applies here when you are talking about drug addiction. So if you start doing compulsory testing, everybody is tested, and parents, also hear that, for example, my child has been tested, and maybe that child, has tested positive to this. The question is, what next? You find parents who will go home and cry, who will go home and quarrel with their children, and they just write the child off. But the fact that somebody is indulging in drug today does not mean he's going to indulge in drug forever. If you intervene with appropriate human capacity, like we're talking about psychiatrists, we're talking about professional counselors, social service workers, psychologists who have the skills to be able to help these children with counseling services to enable them to stay in the system. And we must also ask ourselves the question, why are we testing? Are we testing because we want to eliminate a good number of students from staying from university system? Once we have found you have tested positive, we kick you out of the system. That shouldn't be what we should be testing for. We should be testing to help our children stop indulgence in drugs. So if somebody tests positive, it's not reason for us to rusticate the student. It's reason for us to deploy professional, health and counseling services to help such a child, to help such a young person to desist from further indulgence in drugs. And so it takes human capacity for you intervene in the life of somebody who has tested positive, to be able to know what next steps to take. So it's not enough for you to test and say, some people are positive, others are not positive. What about those who are going to test positive? What will be the next step? It's not everybody that can handle that. And certainly, to the best of my knowledge as a researcher in the industry, we don't have enough human capacity to deal with those issues now.
All right, thank you so much for opening up what capacity really means. Because I've been thinking that if we really test students and find out a number of them are abusing drugs and have drugs in their system, and we send them out of the university into the society, we haven't actually solved the problem. We have just sent the problem to another demography to deal with. And I'm glad that we've put rehabilitation and counseling interventions as part of the capacity to pay attention to. But we have to take a short break, and when we come back, we're still going to have Dr. Peter here with us. And of course, Triumph has some questions as well to ask him. So please, our viewers, stay with us and put your questions also on our YouTube platform, and we'll respond to every one of them. Let's take a short break. All right, welcome back, our viewers, and thank you for joining us. The very recent initiative from the federal government is to make drug testing compulsory for tertiary institutions. And today we are uncovering that initiative to ask if this is the right direction we ought to take. And of course, we've been joined by an educationist, a counselor, a psychologist. I think he wears many caps at this point, Dr. Peter. Thank you so much for joining us and opening up this conversation even more. Of course, Triumph, my co-anchor, has more questions for you.
Okay, so let us dive into something different. We've been talking about the drug testing. We've been talking about the reactions of these institutions. However, let us take a look at the institutions and educators who sometimes enable and ignore these issues. It's not very common, but we cannot say that these things don't happen. So, for example, recently it was in the news that at Queen's College here in Yaba, a student was reportedly bullied by a classmate. And when her older sister went to the school to report it, she was allegedly beaten by members of the school management. So what is this, it begins to tell us some things about the culture of accountability in some of these institutions. And we have heard, different news as regards examination malpractice, even when it comes to these drugs. There are some institutions, some educators who rather than, put things out, they sweep these things under the carpet. But I don't really know if we should say that they are supposed to be doing this, but we cannot also overlook the fact that they don't do this. So my question will be that how can any of this anti-drug, thinking about it, how can any of this anti-drug put some policies in place? What kind of policy can be put into practice by the federal government going to the schools? Because we must not also forget that.
Dr. Peter, did you get that?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I hear, about bullying. I hear about, processes to address victims of bullying and processes in place to deal with complaints and what should be the proper way to deal with that. Am I capturing the question well?
Yes. No, what I'm saying is that what about some institutions, some educators who rather than not ignore these issues, they ignore these issues, they enable these issues as regards to drug abuse.
So when we say enable these issues, are we saying they are supporting other students who are bullies to bully the victims? Is that the way you are looking at it? I would like to interact with you on that.
My question is that rather than expose, help, not ignore issues like this. We have heard stories, we have heard news of, maybe in terms of favoritism, I can use the word nepotism. Put these things, cover up these things. Because of the kind of connection, maybe some of the students, that is an example, maybe some of the students might have, and they would not want to put this thing in the open so that these students can be helped. So what can the government put in place while they are going to these institutions for the drug testing?
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant idea there from you, Triumph. Thank you for it. The point is, again, we have to fall back to capacity. The reason why nepotism will thrive on campuses, the reason why, favoritism will thrive, the reason why unprofessional conduct will be indulged in by teachers, educators, and sometimes even by counselors, especially those who are not well trained, is the fact that we haven't got appropriate procedures in place to report bullying and protect victims. So if we have appropriate procedures in place and policies that are enabled by appropriate structures, and we have different levels of reporting and complaint system, or like a kind of ombudsman, as we would say in higher level, discussion. The point is that if you have this kind of problem, your identity should be protected while the matter is being attended to, and that everybody who has the role to play in ensuring that your complaint is heard must play that role, whether that person likes you or not. The advanced societies, have got to this kind of level. Even the examination malpractice we talk about here, rape, sexual abuse, and those kinds of things that we hear a lot about with respect to our institutions in Nigeria. A lot of those problems have disappeared in the advanced societies. I trained in England and several other countries around the world, and I know that even before I did my PhD, while I was even doing masters, where you have to write exams in the hall, exams are written in such a way that your professor who is going to mark your script does not know that it is you that owns that script that he's marking. Your name is not part of your script when you write exams. Only the administrators who are not your teachers are the ones who will know that the script is yours. So the professor marks the script without knowing whose script he's marking, even though he taught you earlier. That way, nobody victimizes you. So if you have a case to make against your professor, you make that using a system that protects your identity. And so the professor can be punished without you becoming a victim in the process. So we need that kind of system in place across all institutions in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, right from kindergarten, really. It doesn't have to be only when we get to final years in secondary school or when we're in the university. So we should have clear policies written that if you have a problem with the system, with a fellow student, with a teacher, with a counselor, with a school leader, this is step one, this is step two, and that all these tests must be enacted and deployed so long as there is a complaint. So if there are 10 levels, the 10th stage may be when it gets to the Minister of Education. But most of the cases will not get to the 10th stage because by the time we do steps 1, 2, and 3, we might discover that within the institution, we have come to the realization that, yes, a victim is a victim and we need to punish the person who is the bully. Or sometimes, some people also get accused of offenses that they did not commit. By the time we get to stage 2, following appropriate procedures and using the right tools and using the right manpower, we might discover that the accusation is frivolous and we throw it out. But we must be sure that there are standing committees populated by professionals in diverse fields. We need to have a psychologist on that committee. We need to have a professional counselor, a career manager. We need to have probably a visiting psychiatrist from a neighboring psychiatric hospital. If it gets to stage 5, we might have to bring in those people. It means we no longer have the capacity within the school system to be able to treat that. So we need to have such linkages and procedures and capacities in place to be able to prevent the kind of problem you are envisaging or you probably think is already in place in the system.
Thank you so much. I am very happy that Triumph mentioned that because I think I saw the story of the Queen's College saga yesterday. And what saddened me about everything is that teaching job, the education sector is a very honorable one. So when we find certain educators that enable the wrong characters in that sense, it's almost like you're embarrassing that sector as a whole. For people doing great work like Dr. Peter, I'm sure he's not happy to hear such news happening. And of course, apart from bullying, we find some of them even enable the students in drug abuse as well, which is what we're actually opening up. But as we begin to wrap up this conversation, Doctor, there's still this question in my mind I want us to find like a solution to. So I mentioned before that this whole process many times, like you even also mentioned, that it's just for universities to sieve out people. We don't want drug addicts in our school. Let us take them into the society, right? But eventually, drug abuse is a crime that should not be condoned. So we don't even actually need them in the school environment. But we're talking about rehabilitation and everything. I'm wondering, what's this policy going to really look like so that we don't just put them outside, but we are also able to cater for their educational needs later. So I'm thinking, is it like a temporary pause to their education? Should they be involved in drug abuse or like a total expulsion? Or what exactly? What does even rehabilitation process look like for people that will eventually be caught abusing drugs? I want to understand that.
Yeah, well, maybe because, again, as a result of lack of capacity, the authorities are not able to create enough awareness regarding what they are doing, why they are doing it, and how they are doing it. I'm aware, because I'm associated with some people who work for NDLEA, that agency of government is not just there to catch drug addicts and drug barons. The people who are considered the major offenders are those who use it as a means of livelihood. So the drug barons who carry it across borders and sell these things to young people for the purpose of making money. But the people who do the consumption are not necessarily interpreted by NDLEA as people who should be punished. Okay. They are interpreted, to the best of my knowledge, by NDLEA as people who have been misguided and who need help. And they have trained many of their officers to acquire the skills necessary to guide these young people who are now indulging in drugs out of that indulgence. So it's not that everybody who is caught indulging in consumption is treated as a criminal.
I'm sorry to interject,
For now, to
Dr.
the best of
Peter.
my...
I'm sorry to interject. So
Yes.
if NDLEA is not interpreting this as such, the universities themselves interpret, this for expulsion. So if NDLEA is looking at guidance for those that are caught in the consumption of drugs, the universities are not just looking at guidance, they're looking at out of our school. So how are they going to balance both?
Yeah, we must also know that the average university in Nigeria is also a place where you have a department called psychology department, interestingly. And so if those departments are empowered to start using what they know to solve problems in their own institutions, the psychologists who are the professors in those departments will be happy and willing to work with relevant units of the university, for example, student services, units, and every university, especially the public universities in Nigeria, to the best of my knowledge, and many of the private institutions too, are also beginning to see the need to have counseling services in place. So what you find is that the psychologists who work in universities as professors, as teachers, will be happy to make their services available to student services so that they can help students who are indulging in drug consumption to get out of it. So the way forward is not for them to be rusticated. The way forward is to interpret them as young people who don't have the right information, who think that indulgence in drug is a way to escape from maybe a cause they are not coping with, or a way to get high and be able to go and steal money, not being conscious of the consequences of that. So it's possible. We can do it. And so, yes, I agree with you to some extent, because some professors, don't have the awareness. We must be conscious of this. The mere fact that somebody is a professor does not mean that the person is omniscient. If you're a professor of geography, you don't know what we're discussing concerning professional counseling and psychology. Sure. So those who have the skills in the university system should train their colleagues who don't have the awareness, who don't have the skills, to recognize that there is a certain minimum level of intervention and help that amateurs can provide. But when the problem you are trying to solve goes out of your hand, is beyond their skill level, then report it to those who have the professional wherewithal to be able to intervene in the life of these young people to ensure that we solve their problem and help them to continue to engage in their studies, because we do need our young people to finish their studies. We need, high graduation rates. We shouldn't be just throwing people out of the university. And when they finish, those skills they have acquired will help society, as engineers, as political sciences, as economists, as teachers, as counselors, to solve problems that all of us are complaining about. So if we just rusticate them and get them out of the system, we are not helping ourselves, because we are limiting our human capacity to provoke national development. So the way forward is not to leave universities alone and let them grapple with their problems, but we have to have the right policies and the right funding and the right infrastructure and the right human capacity to train all university lecturers to know that if a child is caught indulging in this, the way forward is not to throw away the child with the bathwater. The way forward is to empathize with the child, and then help the child to go and talk to appropriate professionals in the system and sometimes outside of the system to get the help that the young person needs. Sometimes the child and the parents can, on their own, take a decision to take a break from school for one semester to get the drug out of the child's system, staying in a health facility until that matter is out of the person's, biological system, and the person can return to school. But the way forward is not just to rusticate and truncate the child's educational journey.
Absolutely correct. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter. You're spoken like a true counselor that you are. And of course, as we wrap up this conversation with you, I'd like our viewers to know that this isn't just about catching users. It's about understanding why they use it in the first place. And until we create systems that listen, guide, and rehabilitate, we risk pushing students further into the shadows. The real test isn't just drug detection. It's whether our policies reflect empathy, fairness, and long-term solutions. Okay, this is where I wrap up my segment with Dr. Peter. Peter Ogudoro, and we'll see you again definitely next time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Peter.
All right. All right, so back to my girl, Triumph. Interesting conversation. But we'll have to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up the show with the headline story. So you do not want to go anywhere. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
All right, welcome back, our dearest viewers. Thank you for staying with us. We've discussed our hot topic today, focused on the compulsory drug testing for students, and we opened up on how this can actually be the right direction and looking at long-term solutions. But of course, we can't wrap up the show without looking at the headline stories and things making waves this morning. We have just Nigerian papers, The Punch and The Guardian, and Triumph would start with The Guardian.
All right, so let us look into the news making headlines in the pages of the Guardian News. So let's move to the screaming headline first, which is Suspended School Feeding Initiative Leaves 9 million pupils, 250,000 jobs stranded. To the left, we have Alia dissolves cabinet, appoints Atega as new COS. It is also in the news that 2027 Rufai reviews PDP in talks with Obi for major return. And another interesting headline is that nurses begin warning strike over poor conditions, leave patients stranded. So the topic that I'm going to be very briefly, because I have to talk about that second one, which is the nurses already started the strike.
Yeah,
right.
It's like the third day follow-up to that.
Third day follow-up. So we just have to talk about it. So they started the strike already, and unfortunately, we are where we are. Although they said, you know, the government has started negotiation, but they've not really been able to do any negotiations to that point. So I really hope it doesn't stay for long before they actually listen to what they want, and then they reach a conclusion as regards the matter. While the second headline that I want to talk about is Suspended School Feeding Initiative Leaves 9 million pupils, 250,000 jobs suspended. Now, this was in the news that the fate of over 9 million pupils hangs in the balance as uncertainty clouds the federal government's national homegrown school feeding program. Now, apparently, we know that there are quite a number of pupils that depends on the federal government to go to school. And while for some of them, what they are saying now is that they have not been able to receive the funding. And receiving this funding means that the pupils will not be able to go to school, aside to the pupils that will not be able to go to school. So there are over 250,000 people who are employed because of this. You know, they feed the students, they do certain things, the farmers and everyone. Right now, they said they have not been able to receive funding. I really don't know what the federal government is coming out to do as regards that, but I sincerely do hope that they do something immediately, because these students are standing the risk of being uneducated, and the people who are losing their job are standing the risk of being stranded and not having anything to do.
Interesting stories, not like interesting as far it's exciting, but I mean, that's what is happening in our society. The Punch has some stories that caught my attention as well. From the UTME fraud story, it says JAM prosecuted 110 in 5 years. Above that, it says reps probe Nigerian miners abuse claim in car. But Harcourt refinery not for sale. This is from NNPC. Varsity student to face drug test, says education minister. Abiodun welcomes ex-PDP chair and others to Ogun APC. Gunmen stab Ogun Beesman to death. Kings must respect ancestral burial rights or quit throne. And this is from One Day Abimbola. There's also a story here on the nursing strike as well. But even beyond the major headline, one story that caught my attention is something going on right now in Osun State. So the Osun State chapter of the All Progressive Congress has accused Governor Ademola Adeleke of putting the future of pupils in public primary school and secondary schools in the state at risk by deploying 1,750 Imole called teachers to the school. So I can't open this story like a whole lot, but it was quite, this is quite hilarious, first of all. And in case you don't know what ad hoc teachers are like, how do I call it, temporary teachers, people that you just put in a place to solve a temporary problem. And currently, what's going on in Osun State is an initiative from the governor to deploy 1,750 of them to this. Of course, that's caused a lot of outcry politically now. So there is the APC, PDP vibe with the whole story. But it just makes me question now, how do people really treat the education? Education. Maybe it's Osun State. How do they?
Because you're in Osun State.
Okay. How do they really treat it? I think one thing that needs a lot of... I've heard stories that for you to get into medical school, nursing schools, pharmacy, even law as well, there's a lot of intensity with your reading. You have to have the highest of grades. They don't just take anyone. I think there was someone that said they had over 305 or so, and they didn't get into study medicine and surgery. To tell you that they don't just take anyhow. Do you understand? But today, education seems to be the dumping ground. Almost like if you did not get... if you didn't get your microbiology or if you didn't get medicine and surgery or they now put you in microbiology, they'll take you to biology education. So it's almost like the last resort. So you find people there that are not even passionate about it. They didn't choose, it was not their first choice. And they are not even ready to soak in the training. So ad hoc teachers as an initiative shows that it looks like you want to pay attention, you want to sort a problem, an impending problem, you give a temporary fix to it, but you're actually causing more problem than you're solving. I feel like, one thing we should do in the education space is to really scrutinize everything. Like, let's have a proper reset.
From the beginning to the end.
Exactly, like Dr. Ogudoro mentioned, it looks like some policies that we have seems to sort things from the roof rather than go to the foundation, the roots of it. In education, we talked about a story, the Queen's College story, where teachers were enabling, a particular teacher was enabling bullying behavior. A trained teacher would not do that. The way Dr. Peters spoke, if I had some other educator that didn't have this kind of exposure that he has, right, they probably look at things a little differently. But people who are trained in psychology, in psychotherapy, in education themselves view that landscape very differently. Do you understand? Because they are trained for it. So having to see this, what's it called now? Putting a number...
Ad hoc teachers.
Ad hoc teachers. For what are we doing?
Meanwhile, there are lots of problems on ground with the education system already, and we are now looking for more teachers to be there temporarily. They might not even have enough training as they should, and they will be put there. Just like the news that we were talking about as regards the Yaba, the Queen, what happens in Queen's College, Yaba. Now, the same set of teachers, you're even bringing up, what's the number that you called the number of adult teachers?
1,700 plus or so.
I think the education
schools
system,
and secondary schools in the public area.
The education system really needs to be washed. There has
I like
to
the
be,
word washed.
Yes, it has to be washed because we have taken in a whole lot of different things, a whole lot of different offers. People, I am not, somebody like you that is interested in the education space and all of that.
You have to be interested in education space.
Not interested in education space. But one thing that I have realized is people thinking that the education space should be the last option. where you can tolerate anything. You cannot take everything in maybe medicine. You cannot take everything in pharmacy, in the media space. But it feels like you can bring all those things to the education system, which I think should not be accepted. And they should review that thing.
Please, a major review is needed at this point. And this is where we wrap up our conversation. It's been very insightful. Thank you, Triumph, for your insightful, vibrant self every time on our show. Of course, our audience, thank you for sticking with us. Ensure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV. Interact with us for that. I'd like to always hear your comments, see it, okay? Please interact with us. Follow us on all our social media. Engage us, like, share, comment. Invite your friends and family to watch us. And, of course, have a wonderful day ahead because it's Luchi's birthday. So go and enjoy. Go and enjoy. Yo, yo. All right, bye. Take care.